After October 7 massacre, the US, UK, Australia, Europe, and many other countries declared that Israel has the right to defend itself and Hamas should be eliminated. So now we have Penny Wong is calling for ceasefire and demands that Israel does not attack Rafah, which they have said is a headquarters for Hamas. So how can anybody demand this and expect Israel to win its war against Hamas?
Geraldine, as a former correspondent in this area, I know you know the area well. I'd love for you to take that question first.
So the Palestinians are not Hamas, and Netanyahu is not Israel. I think that Netanyahu cannot have a ceasefire because on the day this war ends, the inquiry begins. And Israelis will hold him to account for the intelligence failures that led to the pogrom on October the 7th. And I think he has proven that he will sacrifice every woman and child in Gaza to keep in power. And the Israeli organizations that have come out calling for a ceasefire, they are Israel too. And that's the Israel that I support, the Israel that stands for Jewish values which put the value of human life above all things.
Gideon, I'd like to bring you on this question too, because we have had, well, Joe Biden has been outspoken, we had Canada and Australia and New Zealand put out this joint statement calling, basically warning against any ground invasion of Rafah. Some say that comes too late. Where are we at this key point in time?
Well, I think we're at a very interesting moment, actually, because behind the scenes, even the Americans, who were very staunch in their support for Israel, have had misgivings about the way that the government was conducting this war. And now those misgivings are coming out into the open. As I say, they've been there for a while. I mean, I had, American members of the government who are outwardly very supportive of Israel, slightly wringing their hands in private about some of the tactics that Israel was using, not saying, that they had no right to defend themselves. They accepted that. But, for example, dropping powerful bombs on a refugee camp to kill a couple of commanders, but then killing a whole lot of people who were not active fighters at the same time. And now that unhappiness has come out into the open with Rafah as the flashpoint. And I don't know how it's going to go. The Israelis have said that they won't have their hands tied, but they have said that they will delay going into Rafah until March the 10th in the hope of getting some kind of hostage settlement or that leads to the release of hostages. And that it's not much time, but it gives us maybe 2-3 weeks to try and get some kind of solution that does get the hostages released and that averts what, could be a very brutal assault on Rafah with many more civilian casualties. So it's a very, as a lot of this is, it's a very worrying moment. But I think for the first time, you might see some way of actually getting an agreement towards a ceasefire. Everyone's sounding very tough at the moment, but it's possible that we can avert this attack on Rafah. And just one thing on what Geraldine said. Look, I would like to believe that there was, that Netanyahu does not speak for Israel. And it's true that he's very unpopular, and it's true that he must fear the post-war inquiry. But if you look at what the Israeli cabinet has been saying, which includes some far-right figures, but also some centrists, the rejection of, even a two-state solution is at the moment pretty, across the board. And I think that reflects a very radicalized mood in Israel post-October the 7th, which is actually at odds even with their close allies like the United States.
Julian, Lisa, your side of politics has taken a different position to the government. Do you support a ground invasion of Rafah?
Well, I want to see the conflict over as quickly as possible. In fact, I want to see peace in the Middle East, and we could have peace tomorrow if Hamas would release the hostages, if Hamas would lay down their weapons infrastructure, and if they would surrender. Because Israelis and Palestinians deserve a peace in the region, and they can't have peace while Hamas is there. Hamas is a terrorist organisation that we, long before the 7th of October, listed as a terrorist organisation in our own country. And the depraved acts that it did on the 7th of October are unprecedented. This wasn't just the killing of people, it was the raping and maiming of people, children assaulted in front of their parents, bodies disfigured, babies captured, caged and killed, Holocaust survivors abducted and brought into Gaza. I decry the loss of life on both sides, but in order to get the peace, they are the three things that need to happen.
OK, but there are 1.5 million people in a space which I think Ed Husick put it to me last week is the space of Heathrow Airport. This is a very
Patricia,
small
I've
period.
covered a lot of wars, and in every war that I've covered, there is a place for refugees to flee to. And this has not been afforded to the people of Gaza. And there's Egypt won't open its borders to the Palestinians, and maybe the Palestinians wouldn't go because they have some form on this. They leave their home and they're not allowed to come back to it. But why didn't Israel make refugee camps on the edge of Gaza where people could really be safe, instead of saying, go south, you'll be safe? Oh, no, you're not safe. Move again. Move where? Move where?
I'll just give you a right of reply.
The Israelis are saying that before they go in, that they're talking about setting up 15 tent cities of 25,000 tents in each of the cities and so on. I mean, they have right across this conflict telegraphed their punches in order to try and minimise the human casualties. But Hamas has been using civilians as human shields in hospitals, in schools, in other places, because they've buried this infrastructure that they've had under some of those public buildings. And that's why you've seen the loss of life you've seen.